You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Welcome to Cinema Z, a film discussion and review podcast on BQN. We're here to showcase the films you probably missed, but should definitely check out, from independent and obscure to art house and absurd. Each episode we will gather, and perhaps cocktail in hand, to discuss it all. I'm Mark White, and with me today are Matt and Laz. Hey guys, welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, who are you? Listeners, I don't know these people at all, and I promise I'm not lying. I do not know either of them. So do you want to introduce yourselves and maybe say why you decided to jump on this crazy ship?
Sure, I'll start. Hi, I'm Matt, for anyone that is wondering what this voice is. I decided to jump on this because my dad used to do something with me called Dad's Film School. It started when I was in the 6th grade, and he would show me different genres of movies throughout the years as I got older. So it started with The Matrix. When The Matrix came out, my dad was like, great, you saw The Matrix, now I want you to watch where this originated from. So I watched a lot of like Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, I think came out next year. But then it went on to different comedies. I watched comedies, then action movies. So when this opportunity came about, I said, oh, this sounds like the right thing to do.
Your dad sounds like the coolest guy. Can I be friends with your dad?
I am sure you can. I think he would love that.
Oh, I would also.
Yeah, for serious, it's hard to follow that one up. My name's Laz Marquez, and I'm an artist illustrator in the entertainment realm. So I live and breathe film, TV, comics, anything under the sun, and make it look pretty, hopefully, to those who are viewing it. And I decided to join, thanks again to these two wonderful people for asking me to join, because I grew up in like the 80s, 90s, where for certain people, TV kind of raised you. It was before like parents really had like the tough talks with people. So I'd like learn things through like film and TV, and like the birds and the bees and curse words and all the things you really want to learn from your media intake. So it's become a part of my life, and I love to dive in and really see kind of the richness and storytelling in play for everything across the board when it comes to film and TV.
Oh, great. So you have quite a wide palette of interests.
Yes.
Love that. That's going to come in handy. And I'm Mark. If you don't know me, I have other podcasts on BQN Network. Host All Good Things with Amy Nelson. It's a Star Trek podcast. Also, if you're a patron of BQN, I have a show called It's Green, which is sort of an interview podcast. And what brought me here, I guess, similar to Matt's story, where I just had, my dad was kind of cool in the fact that he, like, both him and my mom were both artsy people. They were really into the arts when I was a kid. Took me all the like the art museums and stuff and what have you, plays. They're really into going to see theater and also interesting movies. And my dad, I remember when I was like, I don't know, like 13, 14, he got me American Beauty, which is an odd thing to get a kid at that age. But that was one of the first kind of artsy films that I ever saw. And that might have just blew my mind wide open, because after that, I didn't want to see, I guess, the blockbuster action movie of the week that everybody else was going to see. I wanted to see the weird stuff that was like, that spoke to me and I could see a little myself in. Like, I couldn't relate really that much to like the superhero stuff that was happening, but I could definitely relate to, well, American Beauty, like Lester Burnham and his character of just like having it with life and really, finding his own path. and movies like that really spoke to me. And I watched a whole lot of odd stuff from Blockbuster. I went through all the independent films and the foreign films in Blockbuster Video. Like, I had that pass, and you could rent like what 2 or 3 at a time.
How big
And
was that
oh,
independent film section? I'm so curious at that point in time. Was it a big selection for indie films when you went to Blockbuster?
honey, I ended up watching Snakes on a Plane because they ran out of films.
Yeah, from what I remember, there wasn't a huge selection in that particular genre.
Yeah.
Not so much.
Oh
So
my
like wherever I could
gosh.
find it.
Right. Wow.
And I mean, I wasn't around. Like I grew up in northern Maine, so I didn't see any Black people or Hispanic people. I didn't see any gay people. I didn't see nobody. In a very French, Canadian, white, that's my whole neighborhood. And so, when I saw in movies like 54 with like Ryan Phillippe and stuff, and this, the sex and the drugs and the rock and roll, the decadence of the 70s, it was just another one of those films where I was like, oh my God, blew my mind. And so I feel like I really learned so much, and it had such a big impact on my life and who I ended up becoming as an adult, being exposed to all of these different ways of thinking and ways of viewing the world through cinema.
It's fantastic.
So today, guys, we are in for a treat. We're going to be talking about Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh my God. How does I want to know how the creator, the writer, and the director made the log line for this. Like, how do you... I can't even begin.
What was the pitch to Michelle Yeoh? What did they say to her?
I don't... Right? Like, what do you... I mean, she was a producer on it, right? Executive producer.
Oh, really?
Well, I guess while you are doing your research, I could give the listeners a synopsis of the film. So
Thanks,
Everything
Les.
Everywhere All at Once is written and directed by Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert. Everything Everywhere All at Once follows Evelyn Wang, portrayed by Michelle Yeoh, a woman drowning under the stress of her family's failing laundromat, her ailing marriage to Waymond, Ke-Huy Kwan, and the elderly father, James Hong, who disapproves of her life choices. But it's the widening gulf between Evelyn and her daughter Joy, Stephanie Sue, that threatens to unravel the fabric of existence as she learns that just one in a vast multiverse of Evelyns, and the only one who can save it.
And she was the executive producer.
After all that.
Found it. Thank you, IMDb.
Laz, kudos for pronunciations of everybody's name, because I would have butchered that. Have you guys heard All Good Things at all? Did you guys listen to me at all on that?
Yes, I've heard episodes.
Okay. So I try to do All Good World every episode, where I highlight a different place on the globe where the podcast has reached. And so a lot of like some of these like city names or names of rivers and stuff, I'm just like, it's like word soup. And I do my best, but it's hilarious.
I get nervous with certain cultures because you want to pronounce the name properly. Like my full name is Lazaro, so you have no idea how many times, like if I go to the doctor or even as a kid growing up with substitute teachers, it'd constantly be like Lazaro, Lizardo, Lorenzo. So I started going by Laz, and people still can't get it right. It's like Lars, Laz.
Did you get a Lazarus at all?
I have to say that a lot of times just to get people to understand what my name is. I'll be like, like Lazarus, and they're like, oh yes.
Oh, that's a cool name though.
Thanks.
What nationality is that name from? Or
I am fully Cuban, of Cuban descent. So I've got to thank my mom and dad for naming me a very Cuban name.
I'm so glad you're Cuban because of next week's movie. Anyway, that makes me so happy.
What do you know what your name means by any chance?
It's really just the Hispanic version of Lazarus. So it's biblically driven. So there's a lot of Lazaros in my family.
Okay.
So I'm a junior. There's
Mhm.
plenty of other relatives, and also Jesus. I have a brother named Jesus, a grandfather, so on and so forth.
Is it
So,
Jesus or Jesus?
well, he goes by Jesus, but
Yeah.
people just call him Jesus. Hey, Jesus.
Okay.
I always wondered that because is Jesus' name Jesus or is it Jesus?
I guess it depends on who you ask and what
Yeah.
they're going through that day.
Yeah.
What they're going through that day.
Oh Lord, that's a conversation for another day. We'll put a pin in that one.
Back to
Uh,
Evelyn.
Back to Evelyn. So Everything Everywhere All at Once. Who picked this movie?
Oh, that was me.
So Matt, like I told you, I own it and I'd seen it a bunch of times. Why did you want to watch it? Why'd you pick it?
So I picked this movie because I remember when I saw it in theaters, God, what, January of last year? And I finished the movie and I was sitting in my seat and I said to myself, if that movie doesn't win the Oscar, I
That's
don't know
it.
what I'm gonna like. I knew, and I haven't had one of those film going experiences since I saw The Matrix.
Wow.
And that was in '99, and I was like 10 or 11 years old, and that movie changed my life. And I had the same experience with Everything Everywhere All at Once, where that movie just changed my life. And not a lot of movies, well, no, that's not true. Black Panther kind of did that for me too, for specific reasons. But I think most recently, Everything Everywhere All at Once was the most recent resonant thing that stayed with me as a film going experience. So that's why I picked it.
You might hear me punch down on superhero movies often, but I will say I saw Black Panther in the theater when it opened, and I kind of loved it too.
Yeah.
I was waiting to see where that was going because I was like, he better like that movie.
No, it was a good movie.
Otherwise, we're getting off to a rough start.
And I did cry at the second one too.
Oh my God, it was like going to a funeral.
Yeah.
I think kind of jumping off what Matt just mentioned, for me, I think out of the three of us, I'm the most recent person to watch it. I couldn't get to the theaters to watch it for whatever reasons. And then I tried to watch it on a plane. And this is not a film that you watch on a plane.
Long flight?
Yeah. So like I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, I don't like halfway through I decided, you know what, I need to watch this at least home, like on a larger screen, really pay attention to it. And prior to that, I knew that I needed to see this because the entertainment industry has been speaking a lot in recent times about representation across the board in terms of how we see cultures, how we see different walks of life, different skin colors on screen and represented. And I think that although we've been taking baby steps, we haven't gotten nearly where we should be with that. And I think that there is a lot of that put on also Asian storytelling where it's represented, but in my opinion, often represented in a very singular kind of way. And I felt like watching the trailer for this film, I was like, wow, like this seems very rich, it seems very honest, and it also is a genre film. And we don't see a lot of that in genre films. So similar to something like we were saying, like with a Black Panther, like seeing a Black superhero is super important. And like seeing this representation in genre, I think is super important. Because I think younger audiences are more inclined to watch genre storytelling, and again, like I hats off to them and the fact that they won all of these awards and were shown that respect. It's like kudos.
I definitely have to agree with that.
I just loved the idea of like as a regular person. Michelle Yeoh is playing just disgruntled housewife that is the owner of a laundromat that's failing, and she's sitting there with all these taxes, and she doesn't even love her husband anymore, and he doesn't really, love her anymore. He wants to, but trying to make it work, but it's just not.
Yeah.
And she's experiencing a multiverse where she can learn from all of the decisions that she didn't make and become like a superhero. When I saw that, it was one of those things, like I was saying, that spoke to me of just like the life choices I haven't made and where I am in my life. And the fact that no matter how old I get, it's never too late to make a different choice or to go a different way or to continue to learn. And I think that's a great message from this film, and just told in a cool way, because you don't see the representation age-wise of action stars in their 50s and 60s, really.
And women.
Yeah. And women. Yeah, absolutely. So that's what really attracted me. Just the novelty of it. I was like, wow.
And I think it's really interesting to see how, in some ways, what you were just saying about, what were you saying about it not being too late to learn something new?
Not being too old to learn new things or to grow.
And I think, with Michelle Yeoh winning the Oscar for this movie, she even said in her speech, "Don't ever let anyone tell you that you're too old." And it's just very interesting to see the life imitating the art in that specific moment. It's like we see her character go through this journey in the film, and we see that arc for Michelle Yeoh, ending with her getting an Oscar. And she said again, she said, "I thought it was too late for me," and I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And I think emotionally as well, touching upon, Mark, what you were just saying, it's like being able to use, especially within genre filmmaking, you're able to use these metaphors in really rich ways that help the audience, because you never know who's going to watch a film like this, right? They're going in with certain expectations. They may not everyone has the emotional intelligence of the same level, right? So when you use those metaphors, you're able to tap into different aspects of different kinds of people. So maybe they'll relate to a certain Evelyn within this multiverse. Maybe they'll relate a little bit more to, Jamie Lee Curtis's character or Waymond. And, being able to have all of that at play at once kind of assures the audience that they'll find something or a way that the storytelling has been told to really latch onto.
Absolutely.
It's crazy that, a movie that is so fantastical on one level can be so damn relatable in another.
It's incredibly gut-wrenching, at least for me. I was crying like the last 40 minutes of the movie. It was just, I think in terms of the film being relatable, and seeing certain things in different characters, something that I also noticed for me was that you can kind of see an arc happening with the different characters. Like for me, the way that I see it is, I see we have Wayman, and then we have Michelle Yeoh. So we have this optimism, we have this beautiful optimism and this love, and then we have the next step in that journey, which to me is Michelle Yeoh's character losing a bit of that hope and losing a bit of that dream, and wondering what happened, what went wrong. And then we go to Jamie Lee Curtis next, who is, in my opinion, just bitter. And oh God, her character has a line where she says, "People like us are needed," or something like that. And so we go from that person that's bitter to the person that makes the bagel and nothing matters.
I love the two of them towards the end of the film sitting on the bench, just smoking smoking some grass. I was like, I'm sitting there with them. In my mind, I'm like, yes, girl, I'd be with you right there. Exactly. It's been that kind of a day. We've all had that kind of a day where you need a cocktail, you need a joint or whatever to just, it's been that kind of a day. I feel but it was strange seeing those two characters after all of their antagonism throughout the film come to a breaking point, and Evelyn's actually getting arrested, and then all of a sudden it's like Jamie Lee Curtis just realizes, her character just realizes what Evelyn's going through, and it's like, oh, that's me.
Exactly.
I've been through that with my husband.
That's
get
exactly
it.
what
Okay,
it is.
Uncuff her. It's fine.
And that's part of the beauty about, and I'll start to get it, hopefully not too annoying with this stuff, but I love to dive into like the minutia of like the script and the storytelling and all that stuff.
Please dive.
Nerds, we're nerds.
Please
but
dive.
There's something so rich about, like, again, like this movie at times can be like way quirky and like super like insane and chaotic, but at its core, it's really about almost like unpacking in therapy your relationships at their base levels. It's like, like daughter, father, mother, daughter, woman and her spouse. Like those are just key relationships in your life that you have to really work hard at. Anybody who tells you that relationships, whether it be friends or romantic or family, are easy, like, no, it's not easy. And this really tackles a lot of those nuances of how people deal with things and how they end up in maybe negative spaces as a result of maybe not dealing with them. And then later on having to, kind of like face the music a little bit and really tackle, all of that built up resentment or all of that, built up rage, or, like you were saying about Jamie Lee Curtis's character. So it's interesting when you start to bubble or boil down a lot of these like key scenes and like that growth that you were mentioning earlier.
There's an element in this movie of generational trauma and breaking generational trauma. We've got Joy and Evelyn who have their situation that is brewing and getting to a breaking point, and then we've got Evelyn and her father who, at least in the beginning, midway of the film, it seems like it's already too late for their relationship. And even Evelyn has a line to her father where she says, why did you let me go, or something along those lines. And so at the end of the film, we're at that place again with Evelyn and Joy where it's that they're about to separate, and Evelyn is now in that position to break that generational curse, to break that cycle.
Well, if we're speaking of favorite lines or scenes, I would like to introduce a segment, Director's Cut. So in this segment, we will pick scenes from the film that we enjoyed and act it out in real time and no practice.
A ham sandwich.
We're going to have so much fun. So the first one up is the scene I chose, and it's the stairwell scene. I would like to be Evelyn. Do we have a Waymond? This is not good acting. So you can do any of them if you want to do one last.
I'll take the rock scene, but I draw pretty pictures, so I'll give the first one to the actual actor.
Okay.
We're doing the stairwell.
Yeah. Matt, do you want to be my Waymond?
Do I?
All right.
Action.
Why did you... Are you crying?
I saw my life without you. I wish you could have seen it. It was beautiful. I should have listened to my father and not gone with you all those years ago. Waymond?
We've got to keep going. Now you've definitely got Jobu's attention. Come on.
Cut.
Oh my
Bravo.
God. Evelyn's, when she said that, I mean, literally, take my heart, pull it out of my chest, massage it a little bit, and throw it up against the wall. I mean, it was like tears. I was like, oh my God. Man, so sad, because you know that Waymond still loves her.
Mm-hmm.
And for her to look at him in the eye and be like, I saw my life without you, and it was beautiful, and she meant it. I was like, that's cold.
Waymond is such a beautiful spirit and a beautiful soul in this movie, but because I went on the journey with Evelyn all up until the point where Waymond has his monologue about why I fight.
Oh, beautiful.
And that nailed it home for me. But up until that point, I was kind of like, I was with Evelyn. I was like, yeah, leave him, go. Like,
No.
I was on that journey, and then yeah, again, he had that monologue, he had that moment, and it just, yeah, it was
And that
great.
was that was like chapter 1 of her seeing movie star Evelyn.
Yeah.
That gets bookended with a scene later on where she realizes, oh, like, yeah, she's rich and famous, but she's essentially handcuffed to that training lady, and she doesn't have her own life, and she doesn't have her daughter that she loves, and she's like, she doesn't have a husband, and so she's all alone and trapped, and she doesn't get it to the end. So she thinks at the beginning in that scene that everything was beautiful,
Yeah.
but then she sees the underbelly after.
Yeah.
And again, I have to interject, but Kehyu Kwan is
Oh.
like he's such a gift to our universe.
Yes, he is.
You know, to think that Short Round and Data from the Goonies grew up to be such an incredible and heartfelt little actor.
Yeah.
I just want to hold him and hug him.
Yeah,
Same here.
it's the sincerity. I always think that, you know, with certain actors, I think with art in general, whatever is in you internally it's always going to come out. If you're an asshole, it comes out in your work. I'm sorry. That's just how I feel. No matter how nice your character may be, if there's something internal in you that's not quite ticking right, it's going to show up in your performance. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that, you know, he is a very sweet soul. And that honesty comes out in the work. I think Viola Davis is the same way. It's just, I love a genuine, honest performance.
Well, we have another scene in here, and this one is Matt's scene, and it's the rock scene.
Is whoever's ready?
So is Laz, are you going to be Evelyn?
Yes, I've always wanted to be Michelle Yeoh.
Yes. All right. Can't wait.
All right. Here we go.
Action.
Oh, good. You're here too.
Joy, where are we?
One of the universes where the conditions weren't right for life to form. Most of them are like this, actually.
It's nice.
Yeah. You can just sit here and everything feels really far away.
Joy, I'm sorry about ruining everything.
Shh. You don't have to worry about that here. Just be a rock.
I just feel so stupid.
God, please. We're all stupid. Small, stupid humans. It's like our whole deal. For most of our history, we knew the Earth was the center of the universe. We killed and tortured people for saying otherwise. That is until we discovered that the Earth is actually revolving around the sun, which is just one sun out of trillions of suns. And now look at us, trying to deal with the fact that all of that exists inside of one universe out of who knows how many. Every new discovery is just a reminder.
We're all small and stupid.
And who knows what great new discovery is coming up next to make us feel like even smaller pieces of shit.
Cut.
Oh, that was beautiful. You're both great. That was great. Laz. I think Laz was like kidding at the beginning when he was like, yeah, I'm not an actor. I don't know what to do. Like he was just like, you know, lowering the expectations so he could just bulldoze us with that performance. Cause that was good. Very good, Laz.
I know I was up for the Oscar alongside Michelle Yeoh, but I decided to give
That
her
was
all
big
the
of you.
credit.
You had this thing that you had to go to.
I have many more years ahead of me. All jokes aside, this actually I think might be one of my favorite scenes in.
Yeah. Oh wow! Oh, in film.
Yeah.
Oh my! Oh my goodness! Okay.
I just think it's so bold the way that it was done. It says so much and gets to the core of the relationship in such a, again, like such an unexpected way. Like you don't need all of the melodrama. It's just literally two rocks.
Yes.
And
it was a commentary on suicide.
Oh my God. Absolutely.
When the rock started going to the cliff, I was like, oh my God. I was feeling for the rock.
I mean,
I was like,
suicide,
no.
depression, the bagel,
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
the moment where Michelle Yeoh is looking into the bagel hole and going, is catatonic the word that I want to use?
Mm.
When she's about to, I guess, be arrested, and she's gone. That's a certain, to me, that's a certain level of depression where you physically cannot function anymore. And yeah, I thought that was some commentary on depression as well.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that that character, that moment where she's about to get arrested and goes catatonic, I almost feel like it was her decision to do so. And where did
Mhm.
she end up? It's with her daughter in a very quiet, simplistic moment where they could just talk.
Hmm.
For her, she was like very stressed out. And so I wonder if like she just collapsed into herself and brought herself, because she at that point had all the powers. Like this was like towards the end of the movie.
Right.
She could transport herself anywhere. So she, I feel like, transported herself and her daughter
To
to
that
the
place.
rock world.
It very well could be the case.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's beautiful.
Every time you think about it, you find something new with this film.
Oh yeah. What is the scene you guys cannot stop thinking about?
I guess
Oh.
I'll go first because it's redundant, but mine was the sentient rocks scene
Mhm.
that we were just talking about. And I think part of it, the artsy fartsy in me, I was like, oh my God, like even just like the captioning of the dialogue. Again, you strip everything away, everything's super simplistic. And it's like such a poignant moment in the film
Mm.
that is, again, like cinematically unique. It gives you a break from all of the craziness. Like my favorite line from that scene is, it's just like, shh, like you don't have to worry about that here. Just be a rock.
Mm.
Mhm.
It's like Joy telling her mom, like almost like flipping the script and becoming the mom for a second, being like,
Interesting. Okay.
calm down, everything's gonna be okay. Like
Yeah.
you don't have to worry. Just like be a rock. And I could be just, deep diving and spinning my wheels, but even that line, just be a rock, it's like for herself or for her daughter.
Mm.
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 Like, does
Oh,
her
wow.
daughter need her to be a rock for her?
Just
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
Very Buddhist.
Yeah.
I loved the cinematography throughout the entire film, but I noticed in particular during the rock scene, and it reminded me of, and I know a lot of people don't like it, but Star Trek Generations at the end, when Picard is standing there over Kirk's grave, and there's that big shot of like the canyon and stuff, and it was just really a beautiful shot.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of that, and I was like, these Daniels are genius. They saved so much money not flying or bussing the actors out there for an all-day shoot. They slapped some googly eyes on a couple of rocks and just filmed in this giant Panavision these two rocks. I mean, wow. I mean, it's
And it-
brilliant. That was
This is
so brilliant.
One of the
them to
most
do.
emotional, impactful scenes of the movie.
Yeah. With a
I
couple
mean,
of
who
rocks.
knew? The scene that sticks out to me is just it's the final fight between Michelle and Joy, Evelyn and Joy at the end. There's an emotional weight behind that scene. It's like with the old Star Wars trilogy, Luke and Darth Vader fighting in Return of the Jedi. That's not just good and evil. This is like father and son
Mhm.
duking it out there, whatever that's been built up for whatever. And it's the same thing here with Evelyn and Joy. And it gets to me. And I think what makes it more impactful is that for me, Joy, every version of Joy, there's an undercurrent of this bubbling sorrow and pain.
Yeah.
And you see it every moment, every scene. It's just bubbling and it's constant, and it comes to a head here. And I think that's one of the reasons why I was crying so much towards the end, because I could just see the pain throughout the movie. And now it's going out in full force.
It's like she felt her whole life not understood, underappreciated, not worthy of love, maybe because of her sexuality.
Mm-hmm,
Because she comes from this strong with a Chinese background, fresh off the boat, and it's in their culture, it just was not accepted. And so she just always felt very isolated and alone, and didn't really think she'd lost hope of her mom and dad ever coming around, or her grandfather, or anybody coming around. She long lost hope.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a huge nerd, and so my answer is going to be a little cheesy for the scene I can't stop thinking about.
Bring on the cheese.
But when all of a sudden I was rewatching 2001: A Space Odyssey in the middle of this movie, I was like, what? Because they shot for shot, I mean, they had the costumes were the same as the cheesy ones from like the 60s.
Is it really? I gotta go back now.
Yeah, the little cliffside looked the same. It was at dusk or dawn. It was dawn. It was the dawn of man. That's right. So it was at dawn. It was the same time of day. Okay. Everything was the same as 2001: A Space Odyssey. So it was quite the homage. But then all of a sudden, like, the monkey that gets murdered is not the monkey that has the tool that makes the tool, because that's the whole thing at the beginning of 2001, and he throws a bone up and he had discovered how to make a tool.
Yeah.
But it was the monkey that didn't have hot dogs for fingers. And I was like, it's really taking the piss out of something so serious, like a cinematic masterpiece, which is 2001: A Space Odyssey, single-handedly one of the greatest sci-fi films ever made. And they just pissed on it, but in such a humorous way. And I was like, oh my God, I love this. It was great. It was an homage, but it also they took the piss out of it. And it was, I really enjoyed that.
And that ape deserved it.
Yeah. Damn hand in his normal hands.
Actually, I have a confession to make, and I hope this doesn't make people angry. Please don't get mad at me, people that are listening. So the last time that I saw 2001: Space Odyssey, I was 11 years old. I have not seen it since, and I need to revisit it to fully
bless you for
understand
seeing it at 11, though. I didn't see it until, I don't know, I was mid-20s probably. I saw 2010 before 2001.
That was thanks to my dad.
Your dad was cool again.
Matt, I'm going to save you here and actually make people angry. I've seen 2001: A Space Odyssey a couple times, and I do not like that film.
Shock and awe.
I am not a Kubrick fan.
Like at all, Kubrick? Any of his films? Clockwork Orange you didn't like?
I have major issues with Kubrick as a filmmaker.
Okay.
That we can get into potentially on another episode. The closest he got to me being a horror fan was The Shining, but even that, not my favorite.
Yeah.
I think he's a fussy filmmaker who perhaps thinks very high or thought very highly of himself, and that comes off on the screen for me as a viewer that looks at things on an emotional level.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little masturbatory for you.
A little bit.
Just a dash of nutmeg. Okay.
So what I want to ask you, Laz, is your opinion of Gus Van Sant, because he worships at the altar of Kubrick, and you hate Kubrick. So,
man, you're getting me into trouble on the first episode.
I love it. You're going to have so many new fans because of this. No, seriously, people are going to be like, "Oh yeah, I agree with Laz." This is going to be a bunch of people. Trust me.
There's also going to be a lot of people who are like, the greatest filmmaker of all time. You like him? We're gonna have trolls right out the gate.
There's no bad publicity.
Not a fan of Gus Van Sant. He's fine.
You don't hate him as much as Kubrick.
No, but then again, I don't think I've seen all of his filmography. So I can't give like an educated enough opinion to say that I hate him.
I've only seen 2 of his movies, so I'm in the same boat. I've only seen Milk and Good Will Hunting.
You haven't seen My Own Private Idaho? I'm glad it's on the list.
I have not.
I will say Idaho is very, very special to me. One of probably the most important films of my life was My Own Private Idaho, and that's Gus Van Sant. Have you seen it, Laz?
Yes.
I hope you don't hate it, because I do want to watch that one.
It's a good film.
Okay.
And again, my opinions are my own and personal. I think if somebody loves a film and I disagree, it's like, you know what? love what you love and enjoy it. I think that there's far too many people out there who are like, you either need to hate this like me,
Oh,
or
yes.
love it like me.
Oh, yes.
Like it's okay. We have plenty of stuff that we can agree on.
There's room for everything.
Yes.
There's room for
Absolutely.
everything.
All at once.
Absolutely. All at once. Exactly.
Everything. Everywhere. All at
Well,
once.
I think actually this is an organic place to launch into the next segment here, which is who or what was the weakest link for you? I will go first because I know there's going to be people coming at me in a second.
Is it Stanley Kubrick in this film?
No. I will say, although I adore Jamie Lee Curtis, I found her tax lady character to be a little unrealistic when it came to some of her dialogue. The way she was speaking to Evelyn, especially when she arrived at the IRS office, was pretty unprofessional and slightly exaggerated with some of her long, drawn-out speeches.
Oh
I was
boy.
like, it kind of took me out of the film a little bit.
You and I are divorced now.
Here's the thing. And it is not shade at all. I know I've seen that character. Oh God, am I gonna get in trouble if I say this? No, whatever. I work with that character.
Oh Lord.
I'm not gonna go into that person's personal life, but
Oh, please do though.
Does she have an affinity for butt plugs?
No, I can't spill that tea. I cannot spill that tea. No,
I want her social security number.
This person is probably one of the angriest people that I've ever met.
Really?
One of the meanest people that I've ever met in my life. And when I tell stories about this person, they come out as if they were fiction, because it is so outrageous. I guess I just say that to say, on one hand, yes, the Jamie Lee Curtis character is an archetype, is a 10 on a scale of 0 to 10, but that person is out there.
You think she'd be happier with hot dog fingers?
I don't think that person at this point in their life wants to be happy. That's all.
And I'm just biased. Like I don't have any rich storytelling like a match. So deep, and I'm like, I just like her because she's in scary movies and stuff. She's like the Scream Queen. Yeah, I just like Jamie Lee Curtis. Now that Mark has obliterated my soul by saying he hates Jamie Lee Curtis' character.
I didn't say I hated her character.
No, it's fine. You hate her so much. It's fine.
Some of the dialogue I felt was a little long-winded. I'm like, would she really be giving her this life speech sitting at her desk? I don't know.
It's fine. We could just change the name of this podcast to the Hate Podcast, because I hate Kubrick, you hate Jamie Lee Curtis. And we just need Matt to jump in and be like, ugh, like Michelle Yeoh. No. So I'm going to go a little bit more emotional and bring this back to a more positive place.
Okay.
I'm joking, guys. Well, who can I relate to the most is definitely Waymond, Ke Huy Quan. Like we've already kind of covered it, so I won't, beat a dead horse, but just like he's so genuine, so raw. And I just love that, like, whether it be kind of prime version of him or his alternates, so to speak, they all had like these just beautiful qualities to them that you could tell like they extrapolated from things that were in prime Waymond in one way or another. And then something that, like, the more I thought about it, I thought was interesting to touch upon here is that in this film particularly, there's a lot of talk about like the Alphaverse, which is like kind of like almost like the viewers, like what the viewer sees as like the coolest like versions of like these characters, and like when they've like powered up and like reached like maximum level in a video game. But it's interesting that at the end of the day, it's almost like the beta versions of themselves that become the hero. So it's like flipping the script.
Interesting.
What we see from like, oh yeah, like in every film, like you got to be like the alpha and like, bulldoze and do all this stuff and like be like this big action hero. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
like at the end of the day, like sometimes being more passive and, just being more genuine and emotionally available, that's when you can actually come out on top.
Right,
I
right.
thought that was cool. And then like character I least related to, I would probably say Jamie Lee Curtis's character, since we're on the hate train. Only because I am not in the tax business.
Ah,
So it was a bit of a stretch for me. But yeah, jokes aside, I felt like there was something within everybody that I could connect to.
I found most of the characters in this film really relatable.
yeah.
It's hard to pick one. Like, I've been the tax lady, but I've also been Wayman, but I've also been Evelyn, and I've also been
Yes.
Joy. I've been all of them. So I can't pick a most or least for this.
I was in the same place. I gotta say it. I've been, except for the dad, maybe I'm not
Oh,
there.
the dad, yeah.
I'm not there. I don't want to get to that place. I want to be in my older age. I want to get to an older age, but when I get to my older age, I want to still be open to newness and for young people to teach me things. And for weakest link, I couldn't find a weakest link. And in regards to people that I related to, it's probably Evelyn and Joy, because I've just been in those places in terms of trying to break certain generational things within myself, or at that point of wondering, well, what if this happened, and what if this happened, and if I did that, would this be different, and why is that this way? Maybe it's that decision that I made on Tuesday that put me where I'm at now. And yeah.
Laz, did you want to add something to the weakest link category?
Yeah, because I love to be the bad guy in this episode.
You're the good guy with reservations.
Yeah, why not? I'll just own my character. So although I really wanted to enjoy the character because I think that she was written very expertly, I did find the performance by Stephanie Sue as Joy to fall a little flat for me. I think with such strong performances around her, she didn't have like the depth that I was expecting from that character, because it's like a very difficult character, I think, to play. So there were times where I just wasn't buying it as much as I wanted to. And oddly enough, and this might kind of like fall into a little bit of slight trivia, but I did hear as I was doing research that this role was initially either offered or intended for Awkwafina. And
Interesting.
there's part of me that almost thinks that could have worked.
I see that. I see what you're saying there. I do think that when I look at the whole the cast of characters, when I look at everyone, I think that it seems almost as if everyone is a little bit quirky, and I almost think that Joy's character is the one person that's, I mean, I said that that Wayland was the most balanced, and I think in some ways he is, but I also kind of see Joy as having this loss of innocence and loss of seeing this world as mystic. I think she's kind of past all of it. You almost need a void of energy quality to play that undercurrent of what that character has moment after moment with her mother, with her grandfather, with the whole family.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I think again, it's like a really difficult role because of the reasons that you're saying.
Yeah.
It's like playing the straight man, or quote unquote.
Right, that's exactly what it is. Exactly.
Like such a crazy circumstance, it's
world.
hard to do because you do feel like you're not part of the same narrative or film.
Right, exactly. And you want to make sure that you're in the same tone, but
Like a synergy that like has, yeah.
yeah, it's exactly what you were saying. And it's for any actor that has that job, it's not an easy task.
Let's jump into rewrites as we wind down. Rewrites is the segment where we discuss things that we would change if we were in charge of making this film. And I would just, I love this film, but I would probably edit it down to 2 hours or less. I would say the first couple of times that I chose to watch this film, I fell asleep both times because it just kept going. There's just so many multiverses and so much happening. And so after the first viewing, I didn't know what was happening. After the second viewing, I still didn't know really what happening. Why am I watching this? What is it about? Because everything sort of comes together at the end, and I had fallen asleep both times. So that's why it was like the third viewing and the fourth viewing, the last one that I did, where I was like, oh yeah, this is fantastic.
I think jumping off of that, I actually started with the runtime as well as something that I felt could have been cut down a little bit. And naturally, when I think of that, I think of editing, but I think that does a disservice to the editors of this film, because I do think that they did really well overall on this film from an editing craftsmanship standpoint. I feel like it would have been rude to be like, oh yeah, like just edit it down. So then as I spun my wheels thinking about it, I do think like I had to push that aside and be like, okay, it is what it is. It's, the story needs to be that long. But I love me a film that's willing to go there tonality wise and be a little quirky and be a little strange and be bold and different. I will say with this film, because of the rich themes that I personally as a viewer really wanted to dive into, there were times where it almost like reveled a little bit too much in that quirky absurdism that distracted me from some themes that I would have liked to have been played out a little straighter. Maybe perhaps that's what I was wanting at times. So it's like I could have done with a little bit of editing with, I think, some of the quirky filmmaking choices, like the dialogue specifically.
Well,
He would have left off the sesame seeds from the bagel.
No, I'm from New York. You do not leave anything off that everything bagel.
this might get me some haters. I am not a hot dog person.
Oh,
I'm just not. I had hot dogs as part of the cafeteria menu when I was 11 years old. The hot dog fingers made my stomach turn a little bit. There's the moments where the people are chewing on the hot dog fingers, and there's ketchup and there's mustard coming out. I think it's really gross. Some people might like that. If you like that, that is your thing. I do not want to kink shame. But I couldn't. That's the one thing I couldn't do.
So guys, do you want to launch into final thoughts?
I'll go ahead and hop on in. What I love, one of the things that I really think is cool about this movie is the third eye moment, where the googly eye that Wayland has towards the end of the movie. Michelle Yeoh, her character, takes it and puts it right here, and it's a third eye, and it's like she's finally seeing things a bit more clearly than she did before. I love that it is Wayland who gives her, in a way, because he's always putting them up everywhere, and at the beginning of the movie she's like, why are you putting up all these googly eyes, blah blah blah, it's so annoying, da, da, da. But in a way he's the one that's giving her the third eye, and he's the one that's most balanced, I would say, mentally and emotionally balanced out of all the characters, and she gets the third eye from him, and I love that. And I think
Ironically, he's the Rock,
Mhm.
and he wasn't a rock.
Yeah. So I love that, and I think that's one of the biggest points of the journey, is seeing with your third eye.
I love that. I guess I will go next. So I think we've all mentioned this a few times, but this is like a really incredibly ambitious film to tackle. Not only is it at least in terms of budget standards for films, like it's relatively low budget and much more of like an art house film, the way it's
Yeah.
made, the way that, you know, what they're trying to accomplish narratively and cinematically.
Yeah.
You know, they're balancing action, they're balancing that with emotion, these huge themes, and then like a hefty amount of quirk, and trying to hit home like a lot of things that I think any film, if they just tried to hit home one of those themes or one of those approaches, would have a hard enough time doing. So the fact that it was able to encapsulate as much as it did and have such resonance with all of that is already like chef's kiss. I know that's like an annoying term to say, but it's true. The performances are just like bonkers good. This cast to me could not have not only represented their cultures as beautifully as they did, but also just really bring their A games on all levels, whether it be the action to the emotion. They killed it. And then lastly, I'll just say that I feel like this might be a very difficult film to describe or recommend to somebody, because typically if you're having a conversation, it's like, hey, do you recommend a film?
Yeah.
I don't know that I'd be able to properly describe this to somebody without giving anything away. So one of the best comparisons I could come up with if I were to recommend it to somebody is that it's almost like an adult equivalent to Pixar's Inside Out, which is another film that I love for a lot of the same reasons. It's like, whereas Pixar's Inside Out anamorphizes these emotions and creates these metaphors into characters, I find that this film really almost creates like these alternates based on those metaphors to drive home the emotional current of the film. The fact that the film can take these very deep concepts and also just leave the audience reshaping and rethinking what it means to just have these relationships, have these personal struggles, and still giving like a very positive theme at the end to leave you with, of like, you know what, if I put in the work, if I really sit there and work on these things, there will be a positive outcome. So it's like, it's not a hopeless film. This easily could have just reveled in the hopelessness.
Oh, absolutely.
And the fact that they did that while also making just a time and universe hopping adventure action adventure
film.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
And it was also a comedy.
Yeah.
And
it was everything. It was all of the things.
It was. It's, you know, it's very interesting to have all of that be sometimes the tone and the different elements of the film are almost the backdrop to the story that you're really trying to tell. And if you're doing a great job of that, I think the backdrop complements the piece, complements the story that you're trying to tell.
This movie was cinematic Jackson Pollock.
I like the art reference.
Yeah, that one's for last.
Oh, okay. It's like it's Jackson Pollock. I don't know.
You don't know Jackson Pollock? Oh, we're gonna watch Pollock. We'll put that on the list. Films to watch. Oh my god.
Right.
He's the artist that does like the splatter art.
Oh, okay.
He'll be chain smoking and whatever, and the butts will get on the painting and whatever, and he'll just keep going. But you look at it, you stand back and look at the piece, and you get this guttural emotional response. You know, even though it looks, if you just focus like on what he's doing, it looks insane, but when you step back and look at the whole thing, it's like, oh wow, like this really makes me feel something. Anyway, so for me, I think that Evelyn succeeded because she had all of the dreams and could see beyond her singular focused other lives, right? Whereas all of the other Evelyns were like, I'm focused on this thing, I'm focused on that thing, I'm focused on the other thing. But the Evelyn in the universe that we are introduced to, she wants to be anything else, and her focus is on like, and you see that she has the karaoke machine, she does all of this other stuff. She's interested in all of these other things, whereas in the other universe, she's more singularly driven towards the one thing. So she was the perfect Evelyn, to
Mhm.
go and inhabit all of these other lives because she'd spent her life dreaming about him.
Yeah.
Every ordinary person has within themselves the capability of being extraordinary. And I love that that was one of the themes of this movie.
Yeah. It's the moments where Wayland is talking to Evelyn, but it does make me think of a Star Trek moment. Sorry, I know this isn't supposed to have Star Trek.
We literally
references.
have 3 Star Trek nerds talking anything but Star Trek. We're going to mention Star Trek at one point. Whatever.
So I just show this episode to someone. There's the episode of Next Generation Tapestry. Jean-Luc is seeing what his life would have been if he didn't make these decisions. And there's the final moment where Q says to Picard, this Picard that you just lived a life of didn't do this. He learned to play it safe and he didn't get noticed by anybody. And I think we see Evelyn get to finally not play it safe.
And she smashes the window. And the darn bat had the googly eyes on it.
Oh my God, you're right. That's right. The bat had the googly eyes.
That bat was actually played by Gus Van Sant.
We're going to have some fun here. I can tell already.
I think so.
All right. Well, Laz, I think it's only appropriate if you tell us what we're going to be watching next time.
Okie doke. On our next episode, we will be watching Before Night Falls, released in 2000 and directed by Julian Schnabel and starring Javier Bardem and Johnny Depp. So this film is based on the 1992 autobiography of the same name. It tells the story of gay Cuban writer Reynaldo Arenas, showcasing his early life in Cuba, his time in prison, and his escape to the United States in 1980. Cuban represent. I'm actually in the film as an extra. I play a gay palm tree.
Oh.
In Cuba,
Okay.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
A gay palm tree in Cuba.
So for our listeners that would like to check out this film, it's available on Prime Video streaming now. Well, we would love to hear what you thought of today's episode and hope you'll join the Facebook group, the BQN Collective. You'll meet other degenerates there where you can continue the discussion. You can also, I've had a drink, can you tell? You can also tweet your thoughts at CinemaZPod. We're on Twitter, and let us know if you'd like to recommend a film for us to watch. You can also follow the network on Twitter and Instagram at BQN Podcasts. So, Matt, where can people find you when you are not being a rock?
When I am not being a rock, you can find me on Instagram at 1701BLERD. And Laz, where can people find you?
You can find me on all social medias, Instagram and Twitter, specifically at Laz Marquez, LazMarquez. And you can check out my artwork on www.lazmarquez.com. So, Mark, where can people find you?
Well, people haven't had enough of me. They can find me on my other podcast, All Good Things, where I talk all things Star Trek with Amy Nelson and Christos Generis and Calvin Wood. And we have a whole lot of fun over there. So it's 3 gay guys and Amy Nelson, and talk a lot of Star Trek. Also, if you become a patron of the network on Patreon, you can listen to my show It's Green. It's a fun show as well. And then I'm on Twitter at MarkWhite207, and I'm also in the BQN Collective Facebook group. Please hit the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a star rating and written review. That helps others to find the show. You can also follow the entire network's podcast with our master feed by searching BQN. That way you won't miss any of our fine shows like All Good Things, Galaxy Class, History with the Szilagys, Infinite Diversity, Union Federation, What's the Tea, Bev, Trexperts Quiz, The Captain's Couch, and Bargain Bin Gamer.
At this time, we would like to thank our associate producers, and a special thanks to Mark White for our artwork each and every week.
If you'd like to help us keep all our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. We will add you to the Hive Mind Facebook group so you can enjoy It's Green, Amy's Math Moments, and other network perks. With a monthly subscription of $5 or more, you can join our meetings on the Hive Mind Roundtable discussion on the second Saturday of each month. Visit patreon.com/BQN to get all the details and watch your messages.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you'll tune in next time. Don't go down the bagel hole.
You took my line.
Okay, that's good.
That's so sultry.
I know, it was so soothing, so calm.
I love those NPR guys. I always wanted to be one of those NPR guys. You're listening to National Public Radio International. Here is Johann Sebastian Bach.
Or the bookworm segment.
Or
Is it-
Anna Gasteyer and Molly Shannon.
Oh,
Oh,
the
wow.
was it the sweaty balls, right?
I really like the taste of these balls. Wow. Yum. They're so salty.
Do you want to taste some of my salty balls? Here. Oh,
Get ready, folks.
what a great way to end. This is perfect.